everybody, my name is Cheri. Welcome to my stamp studio. I'm going to do another card in my celebration series. So celebration ends on September 30th. I'm not quite sure what day this video will post, but already even today that doesn't leave very many days left. So you'll want to make sure that you have everything out of this catalog that you want, because once it's gone, it's gone. And the other thing is, if you're on my email list, along with this video, you will be getting my 10 must-haves. You'll be able to find them also on my website, I hope. I'm getting ready to go to Michigan and I'm doing a presentation there, so I have to pack. And I have a Zoom meeting tonight with my new team members. So if you want to join my team, oh, I guess it'll be gone by the time this posts. I have my daughter and her boyfriend coming over for dinner. So it's a busy, crazy busy day. So I'm going to try to also get a blog post up with it. I will be home before the end of the month. So if it doesn't go up, the blog post with the 10 things. So make sure you're on my email list, and then you'll have it for certain. So I'm going to use the Delicate Dahlias, which are one of our free choices out of here. It's free with a $100 purchase, and it's because sometimes people ask me why it's 100 and why it's a 50. This has 2 sheets of stamps, so it's basically the size of 2 stamp sets. That's how they determine whether or not. And it's also one of the etched ones, so it takes more work to make them. So I'm going to use that out of here. And then I'm going to use a couple of things out of the mini catalog and a couple of things out of our annual catalog. If you need either this or the annual catalog and you don't have a demonstrator that you buy from and you're in the US, message me. I'll be happy to send you one. And then I did pull out some of the things that are on my top 10 list. Oh, a bird just hit the window. So I'm going to use the Delicate Dahlias. And then out of the holiday catalog, look, I have the Heartfelt Wishes. This is a fabulous set. I've used it on a reindeer card that posted recently. This is a fall card. So I'm going to use a different saying out of that. Then I'm going to use the fluid watercolor paper. I love this. I was going to do a bunch of honorable mentions, but I'm like, you can't do a top 10 list and have 25 things. So I have a couple of honorable mentions. This might have made it, but I know not everybody likes watercolor. And when it comes down to it, it's not a must-have. It's a nice to have. So during celebration, it's a fun time to stock up on some of these things. Now, one of the things I do have that's a must-have is the Stamparatus. I think it's a must-have. I have both this and the full set of blocks, because there's nothing worse than always having to switch your stamps around because you don't have enough blocks and you don't have the right sizes. So if you can only get one, get the Stamparatus, because you can use it and not have any blocks. You can use this instead of having blocks, but the Stamparatus is one of the things. And I'm going to show you how to load it. That's why the stamps are on the back of the thing. And our Stamparatus does come with 2 plates. So you can see one's in here. And then I have this one ready to go for my sentiment, so I won't have to load it again for you to watch. Then another thing, I went over and over on the coloring tools. So we have blender pens, we have blending brushes, and then we have I have ink on my hands, I see now. Shocking. The water painters. So this is the one that I ended up putting on the list just because there's a whole lot more than you can do with it besides just coloring it. The blending brushes and the blender pens are more kind of a one thing. This one might take a little bit more practice, but if you do my classes, you often get a free one in the class because I love them. And then I think the #1 must-have during celebration, not the #1 must-have, but the thing that you should consider getting during celebration, and there'll be more information, are ink refills. And not just one, but by the color family. Because what we're going to do with them right now, we're not going to refill a pad. So you can use them in lots and lots of ways, but then when you do have them when you need them to refill your pad, because again, there's nothing worse than wanting to stamp and then finding out your image isn't great because you don't have enough ink. So for this, we're going to watercolor with our Stamparatus. So because the stamp set that I'm using, the Delicate Dahlias, I'm actually kind of doing it colored as a mum, because if you don't know a whole lot about flowers, then this could be a mum and this could be a little fall flower. So I know it's a dahlia, but we're just going to color it, and that'll give it the illusion that it is a fall stamp. So you're going to take your Stamparatus, because it's photopolymer, you need the little photopolymer insert, because this is acting as the rubber that's or the padding in between the red rubber and the pad. that obviously isn't on here. So I'm going to slide this in, make sure it's all the way in the corner. And then I have a piece of seal that I have just stuck here because I'm going to stamp all over this and I don't want to have to be moving the magnet. So I'm just going to stick it in here. And this is a half a sheet of our watercolor cardstock. Then you take your stamps, and we're going to be able to get all these on here at once. Remember, the flat side needs to go up here. So I'm just going to layer these on here. It's easier to lay them on your paper than it is to put them over here and hope it hits your paper. And then once you've done this, you can make multiple cards and not have to line it all up. So just get it where you want. Now, if I was just stamping, I might have more leaves and stuff than this. But for this technique, the one leaf is fine. So one leaf over here, and then the larger leaf up here. And try to get them as close as you can to each other because there's a gap in that rubber. So it won't quite touch, but then you just take your lid, and you do this for any kind of card that you want, and grab it on here. Now, you can see that there's a couple of places that I could maybe get the magnet. I do have that just being held on with seal. So I find the easiest thing, because sometimes this photopolymer pads are sticky, so just hold it on all on together. But because we shoved this into the corner, we know that it's where we wanted it on the paper. So now let's stamp this. So I'm going to take my water painter. I'm going to just grab a wet wipe so I can clean it. And then I just like to use any kind of a, if I was doing it on my own, I would use one of my little Ray Dunn trays, but this is easier for you to see. So anything, you can use a styrofoam plate, you can use a glass plate, you can use little decorative things. This is from the Magnolia collection at Target. So I have refills, and here's what I do. I was gonna do the same thing I did with you on this and just refill it from scratch, but then I thought I don't want to waste all this ink. So I have Cajun Craze and Calypso Coral, Pumpkin Pie, and then Papaya. So I always go from dark to light, so that way if you mix your bottles up, you'll remember what they are. And then I lay them back in the same order that I just did it. So those are for our flowers. And then I have a little highlight of crushed curry. And you can see when they're on here, sometimes they're really hard to tell what the color is. So crushed curry, I don't need any more of that. And then down for the greens, I have evergreen and soft succulent. Have enough of those. So again, dark to light. So that way I know the darkest green is there, and then I just work that way for my color palette. So if you're using something smaller, it can be a little bit trickier to get them all on. And then if I'm doing this for a class, then I often take a Sharpie and I just write Cajun Craze, Calypso Coral, Pumpkin Pie in a Sharpie, and then just wipe it off with a magic eraser when you're done. And then this is my brown, and it is Soft Suede. So now it's all loaded. All of our inks are ready to go. But if I run out, I know exactly where they are without having to write them, and I can go ahead and just refill it in the pad. Now, normally I would put this in here too, but when I was doing it, and there's the ribbon, my pen for my ribbon. We can stick it here. So if you just find some place to stick your little wet wipe, then you can clean your brush as you go. So we're gonna actually ink these with the ink that's in here in our water painter. So to get the water painter going, you just see where it says push. Make sure you have lots of water. The water really, I find it works better if the water's at least up past where it says push. If you're using it and it goes down, then the brush is usually wet enough, it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna let's do our flowers first. I am going to go for this. I don't remember what order I did it in on my first card. So just brush this on. This is Pumpkin Pie. Move it so you can kind of get that on there. Then I'm gonna go with a little bit of the coral. Because this is really wet, you don't have to worry about going super fast because there's plenty of time to work with it. And in fact, this one's big enough that if you are doing a quick card, you could just ink it like this and be finished, because you're gonna be really happy. Now, because I'm going for like light to dark, I'm not cleaning this in between. So that's all inked. Now, the reason you want to use watercolor paper is because we're going to end up having a lot of water on here. It does take the watercolor paper a minute to absorb. And if I missed anywhere, it's okay because it's on the Stamparatus. So just let all that soak in. You can do both flowers at the same time if you want. So we've got the first outline and you can see where I've missed. So let's just, I think I'm gonna go the lighter. So let's get the pumpkin pie. Didn't get all this here in the middle. We're gonna do a couple of different coats, so it most certainly doesn't matter if you have it all the first time. Grab some of the coral. And then again with the Cajun, kind of get that in the middle for this flower to be a little bit darker. And every time we want to clean it, just take it over here and squeeze it out. Yesterday was the first day of fall, and it had been in the 90s consistently here in Indiana. And the nights were in like the 80s. So we couldn't even open our windows at night. And then today the high is like, and I think the high is gonna be like 57. It's freezing, it's raining. It's like, well, fall is here. So I have a sweatshirt on and I have a winter pajama bottoms on. I'm not, you know, when you're gonna be at home all day and it's the first day of fall and it is freezing cold and raining, then you just go with it. So now we have these. Now we're gonna be able to start to color those in. We don't have to worry about getting the rest of it done because our last coat will kind of fill in those lines. So the first pass through, I'm gonna take the papaya and just kind of brush it on here because it's the lightest and so it won't cover up any of the lines. But you also don't have to get everywhere because nature always has bits where the light hits it. So if you don't get everywhere, that's fine. And again, we're gonna do a couple of different layers. If you don't like understand watercolor, you haven't done a bunch of watercolor, this is a great way to kind of test. So that's kind of colored in. Let's get some of the papaya over on our little flower. You can see how pretty and rainbow that is. The first time I did this, because my stamps weren't stained with the ink color, it was easier to tell where the ink was. So when I stamped them, they were all the image was there and they were really pretty. I did consider just leaving it then, but then I thought no, because this is so much fun. This is the kind of stamping that you do, well, if you don't have a lot going on, which is not my case, but I'm showing you, on a rainy day, because it's the art of it. And I love the art of stamping. That's why I do it. Okay, so now I'm gonna move to some pumpkin pie. And this one I won't put everywhere. Just some places. And the other thing you don't want to do when you do this second and third and fourth step is cover up all that white that we've left there intentionally, because sometimes you're like, oh, it's missing, and so you just gravitate towards it, leave it so you have some white. Get some on this one. Kind of build that in. Now I'm gonna get my Calypso Coral. And then you can start to see where the colors really take off. When you use inks to do any kind of art coloring, the color's a lot darker than it is if you have just an ink pad, because it's full strength. You can add a bunch of water and get it to be lighter if you want. So these look like mums that you would get at the orchard this time of year. Or if you're like me, you got them at Costco because they're a lot cheaper. They're prettier at the, well, not prettier. They're prettier when you see them at the orchard as opposed to seeing them stacked up on the pallets at Costco. So now we're gonna go with the Cajun crepe. So for this, I'm gonna be much more precise on where I put it because I don't want it to bleed everywhere. And I'm gonna kind of stick with petals. So So you don't want it on all the petals, but you do want it on enough that you get the fun highlights. And I know you think, oh, you can't see that anymore, but that's okay because we're going to stamp over the top of it. So go down here and get the Cajun. And then I've got that crushed curry. And this is just going to kind of lighten some of it up. Needs a little bit more water. If your color's too dark, see, crushed curry can be almost as dark as the others because it was full strength. Once you add that water, then you get a little bit more of the yellow. And I don't want a lot. I want the overall flower to be oranges, but I'm just putting this on here to kind of lighten it up. Now, if you put this much paper or water on vanilla or basic white cardstock, it's gonna pill. So that's, you can use the watercolor, your best choice. The second best choice would be to use shimmery white, and just be careful. But it has a nice coating on it. Now we are going to go to our leaves. So I want, of course, the darkest, which is our evergreen. These go a whole lot faster. So just brush the evergreen on. Get the stems. And the nice thing is it can stamp over. If those other ones weren't dry, it doesn't matter. So you have to have the Stamparatus, or if you're have been stamping for as long as me, a stamp positioner tool, but this is much easier than a positioner tool. So look how pretty it looks this way. That just makes me happy. So just let that have time to soak in. I have ink there. Oh, it's on the inside, so I'm good. I didn't want to rub my hands in some green ink. So now we have that. That's pretty wet, so I'm going to start with this one. Again, I'm going to make sure I get all this evergreen out, because if I mix the evergreen with my succulent, I'm just going to have a shade darker of evergreen. So just get that out of your tip. And you know when it's clean because it starts going clear. You get some of the succulent. And leave some white. Just fill that in. And then I like to take this and just kind of wisp a little to make sure it's kind of touching. Now we're going to go to our soft suede, which is over here. And I know because I put an off color, that's the only one I'm using on its own. I don't want to get everywhere, but this is going to kind of give it that fall, things are dying kind of look. And soft suede is not the darkest of our browns. I want to make sure I get right here in the middle. And we need more of this. And it also gives the definition, but you don't need to put it everywhere. It's just kind of a highlight. I'm going to get one more little squeeze. And you can see where you can get it lighter or darker. You don't want the water to pool in there, because if it pools in there, it's just going to spill into your card. So this needs to be wet but not dripping. That looks pretty good. And the nice thing is, if we still need a little bit more definition somewhere, we'll be able to add it. So again, I'm going to let that kind of soak into the paper. Isn't that pretty? That's pretty like that. Okay, that should be good. So see, now we're getting that really fun definition back. So right here, I want a little bit more. I think the rest of it's kind of good. I think that was here. Yep. You can get a little bit more. I think it's good. Look at how the way the colors, that soft suede is kind of blended where the things were still wet. Now my first one has more definition, but it's because I wasn't filming, and so I let just a second pass in between each coat. So this didn't get quite as smeary, and I'll show you the difference. I kind of like this. This one looks a little bit more autumn, and it's definitely a little bit more watercolory. Now you can see I still have this soft suede on here. I'm going to clean this up. I'm gonna kind of get some water here. And then just lightly tap. Again, it's the crunchy fall feel. I'm gonna grab a little bit of the Cajun Craze. I didn't even clean my brush. Now, if you have, I tried on this project specifically to not use a cut and emboss machine because you don't have to have it. And I know not everybody has one, even though it's my #1 thing on my top 10 list of things, especially during celebration. You can get free dies. You can get this set. So it's about, I think it's $120-ish. You can also get it if you join my team, and it could be the thing that comes in your kit, and then you also get to pick a free bundle. And all the information's on my website. So now, remember I said that we have 2 doors. So I have this, and I've already loaded my words on here. So I always use the lines that are on the Stamparatus as my guide. So I can take this off. Let's see if that's about where I put it. And then I just slide it up lines. That looks pretty good. And then I have a piece of adhesive, excuse me, in here as well. Because sometimes those magnets, I use them, especially if I'm gonna do lots of multiples for this where you're just doing 1 card. It's just as easy to do this. If I set it up for camp, then sometimes they use the magnet. Now I'm gonna use soft suede, but like I told you, the refill color is a lot darker than the actual stamp color, stamp pad color. So it's probably gonna take a couple of times. So every time it gets a little bit darker. I can tell the stamp pad also needs to be re-inked, but here's the tip for you. Don't re-ink a stamp pad right before you go to use it. So I'll re-ink this when I'm done. But it takes a little bit of time for the ink to kind of spread through your ink pad. There we go. One more time and we'll be good. Yeah, I was torn whether I wanted the Much Gratitude to be the star of the show or to just kind of be on here with this. So I liked the way that the flowers are still a star, and then we have this nice little sentiment here. Let's take that. And since you have 2 plates, if you're gonna make more than 1 card, you can just then flip back over to your watercolor one. I'm going to take this and put it on some soft suede. See, it's a light brown. I'm using Seal Plus because the paper is still a little damp, and this is a thicker paper. If you wait for it to dry, you could use the just regular seal, but that'll make sure this one stays on here because I send these to my customers who purchase every month. I save them all up. Here's what I do. I save them all up because I have far more customers than what I have cards I've made on my YouTube channel. Although I do end up with 2 of them. So once everybody at my live events has seen them, then they make their way into the bucket for, oops, I forgot the ribbon. That's okay, we can still add it. So 1 month I stamp them all and everybody gets the same one, and then a month or 2 later when I've built up enough stock, then they get it. This is ribbon that is from the holiday catalog. I'm not going to do a bow, so this is why I have ink all over my hands. Those of you that don't like to tie, this is the perfect ribbon for you because that is a nice enough little chunk there that you don't need to tie a bow. You can, but I thought this kind of went with the 70s feel of the colors. That was the other reason I used the Seal Plus. So I'm going to put my knot not in the center. I'm going to put it down here. Just add a little bit of the Seal Plus. The other one wraps under. This one's not going to wrap under because I've already glued it down. So we'll get another look at how you can do it. See that when the card is wet, you can see it pulled up some of my design. This. And this down here, I'm going to let it go all the way down here. So now we've got this. Now, it's really pretty, but you know, it's raining, and when you look outside and you have those beautiful colors in the rain, it looks a little glistening. So I'm just going to take a Wink of Stella, which this is one of my free gifts with purchase this month. So if you get some of the things on the top 10 list, then you can also get, I should have squeezed this before, because now my squeezing is for the water painter, which is a harder squeeze than this. This you squeeze gently because you don't want all of your glitter to come out at once. So just kind of add that over here. And then just a little swipe on the leaves just to kind of give that fun fall feel. Then for my embellishment, I took the brushed metallic dots, and these are also in the holiday catalog. So I'm gonna get a flower center. And then let's do another flower center. Let's do it in copper. So these are kind of like a bronze, a copper, and a gold. And then I'll get a little gold. These are not, this card is, it's the same card, but completely different from my first one. So I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So there you go, super pretty. So very dark. I used both of these in the center because it didn't occur to me till after I'd stuck two of them on my other one. So here's my first one. So this one, I got more of the definition because I allowed the time in between for drawing. And it's not a lot of time, but like a couple of minutes. And it's also because it has been raining for about 24 hours and my window's open here. So it's not at all dry in my house. It's pretty muggy. So because I was doing it straight for you, this one has a much more fun watercolor look though. Both of them, I like both of them just as well. I do like that I wrapped my ribbon around better than doing this, but you know, if you forget, it's not like you have to throw the card out. So that's what I have for you today. Make sure you're on my email list and you can check out the top 10 things. They're must-haves. You don't have to have them all at once by any means, but it's a nice time to kind of go through your list during celebration so you can add one of those free things on as well. Everybody have a great day, and I have one more project in the celebration series because then it'll be about over. So everybody have a great day. Bye.